I'd like to welcome y'all here tonight. We're just a couple of minutes away from beginning the meeting. And before we do, I would invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then Mike Overton will bring the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear God, we thank you for another beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to live and work in this wonderful nation. Be with us now tonight as we deliberate and help us to make decisions that will benefit us all. Amen.
Thank you, Mike. All right. We do have large print copies of the agenda. If that would be helpful to anyone, feel free to get one. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. And I'll ask our clerk, Denise Pierce, to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Amelia Williams.
Here.
Jeff Watson. Mike Overton.
Here.
Colby Fulfer.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rick Evans.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Kathy Jaycox.
Here.
Ernest Kate.
Here.
Thank you. Before we move on with the agenda items, I've got a couple of things I hope you will, that I'll entertain a motion to add to the agenda. One would be a presentation, an update from Joe Brooks concerning Bethel Heights and what's going on there. And I'd like to do that before citizen comments. And then you have a resolution before you that the Police and Fire Committee forwarded, but it didn't get on the agenda, and it should have been, having to do with purchasing some equipment out of the 833 funds. And we could put that at the last if y'all like. We could, item 14. We could make that item 14. So that's my suggestion, and if I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Powell.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes, if we had a better chairman, it would have been on the agenda.
It was his first time.
Fulfer. Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am. Carry 7-0.
All right, thank you all for doing that, and I know you'll want to hear from Joe. So Joe, come on up, and you got some visual with this. You got a PowerPoint or something? Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Good deal.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. With me today is several of the citizens from Bethel Heights that were up here back in the summer. So this is a presentation, and I've added to it a little bit, that we presented water and sewer, and we wanted to come before the council and update y'all and tell you where we were. We're going to be bringing the signatures to Denise next week to try to move this thing forward and see if we can't try to solve what, for whatever reasons, been allowed to go on forever.
Hey, Joe, make sure you're getting in that microphone good, because we'll want to be sure the
Okay.
folks at home hear all this. Okay.
I
Joe,
guess I'm technically
to your point, Mayor,
challenged.
have you introduced yourself and said who you are?
I'm Joe Brooks.
That would be
My
good.
aunt, Charlotte Steele, has property. The Bowens have property, both Kevin and Lawrence and Joetta. And they are the ones that were here before talking to you about the issues and asking for help. So here we go. Okay, as some of y'all may remember seeing this, when this started about a year ago, you can see to the left, the lower is Charlotte's property, to the right is the Bowens property, and this was just a swamp, and it pretty much still is, where the sewer just runs off and winds up down the ditch, and it's just a terrible situation. And both of those sewer fields, one runs into Puppy Creek, the Illinois River watershed, and the other one runs off into Spring Creek, which is coming right down through where y'all have worked with Game and Fish and all that interactive site. What I'm going to show you here in a little bit is just terrible. And this is unpermitted. It's all been in violation. This has been going on over 10 years, where it just oozes up out of the ground, and it's just a terrible mess. And this shows where it continually runs off, comes across onto the neighbor's property. And I don't know many people that would put up with this, but they've complained several times a year to ADEQ, and it's just been allowed to continue to go on. And I got Mr. Al Drinkwater, Town and Country Services, engaged with this. And so you can see up the top, their permit limit was 2,000. And you can see we started doing this, and I don't know, we've maybe had one test out of maybe 100 that passed. Some of them up over 1 million, 1.9. Some of them come in so bad there's too high to count. So, I mean, this is definitely a public health hazard on the bacteria. Anything above 10,000 is considered dangerous to public health. These engineering problems were somehow overlooked when it started in 2003. From what our experts said, their loading rate was allowed to be 7 times higher than what the soil could allow. It was immediately overrun with wastewater. Now here's an interesting one. They've known it hadn't worked since 2005. So in 2006, they constructed pipelines going to private landowners, dumping excess wastewater without the permission and without a permit. So for 12 years, ADEQ allowed this to go on, didn't pick up on it. Every ADEQ inspection has showed site failure. Nonetheless, additional permits were issued without correcting the failures and the problems. And the big question is, why is this allowed to go on? Why is it covered up? Why hadn't this been stopped? This shows the one in the bottom was a pipeline from their sewer field, went into the Bowen property on the left, went into Charlotte and Jason Steele's property, where when you can't handle it legally, you dump it in the neighbor's ponds and then blame it on the cows. So hoping it will go down the creek and Mother Nature will take care of it. This shows, and you understand what that is, washing up in the backyard. These poor people have had to put up with this over a dozen years. I mean, can you imagine? Can't open your back doors, can't go out, can't let your grandkids play. Terrible. You know, this goes on, has gone on all the time. And the only way they've got away with it was on the back side. You couldn't see it from the road unless you were on the private property owner's property. So, by engaging Mr. Drinkwater's firm, Town and Country Services, we started chain of custody sampling January 19, and real quick showed a big difference between independent sampling and what their sampling showed. In June of this year, 1.9 million fecals. Now, 10,000 is the limit. So they've turned this thing, it's almost like a breeding ground for harmful bacteria. Finally, in July, ADEQ took their own samples, and they came back too numerous to count. So now, ADEQ's kind of clamped down and started requiring a lot more reports and getting a lot more engaged, but still, it's such a mess it allows to go on. Now, here's the big one. On January the 8th, I think there was a hearing in Little Rock, and the operator up there was, I guess you can say, had his license permanently and suspended for falsifying data from Bethel Heights. So we'll see how this goes out. I'm sure they'll appeal it, but some of those numbers, the state finally got involved, went back, checked all this. None of it added up. So, in August 16th, they got the notice of violation. In October 16th, before this group's lawyers was allowed to intervene, ADQ and the city entered into a consent administrative order where basically ADQ allowed them to plead guilty and say they're going to stop all this and move forward. And Bethel admitted to the data not being right and all the violations. And the city agreed to haul all the excess sewage to a regional treatment plant. The city's not honored any of it. I mean, it's still going down across their property, down the ditch. And now that the state has brought in their own inspectors and third party, all the tests now, they're terrible. The last 3 months, they've failed everything miserably. And this is kind of what I'm going to show you towards the end of this, because these numbers are so bad. All that surface washes off and comes down through your all's projects, which, I mean, it makes it a threat to Springdale now. So we're pushing hard now to, the lawyers are finishing reviewing stuff. They'll be bringing Denise the signatures next week. We'll continue to keep the signatures, but we're going to push to try to, it appears that citizens in the ballot box is the only way this is going to get fixed. ADQ's not enforced any of that, and they're still not hauling off enough excess sewage. And the neighborhood's still being flooded. Same as the past 13 years, the city pollutes, ADQ shuffles paper. Now, here's some of the latest stuff. Shows the same thing. Everybody got so frustrated, and Al and I didn't have enough time to keep running up there documenting all this, where we put surveillance cameras up on the fence rows. So all this is documented 24/7 now, and it goes direct to the prosecutor and to ADQ. And so I don't know, I'm kind of embarrassed personally. I've been to Little Rock about 5 times that I haven't got it stopped, at least in their backyard yet. Al and I both. But we are going to get there one way or the other. Here's an interesting picture that the security cameras caught, where they also got caught doctoring the site ahead of sample taken. So if you put chlorine out there to try to kill the bugs before you pass and pull the samples, that's more of the falsified data. This shows ADQ inspecting the site. So, I mean, every time they're out there now, we know the time and date and what have you. So there they are inspecting, coming over on the Bowens property. Here's the pipeline that comes into Spring Creek off the other one, off Oak Street, goes in a ditch, under, around, heads right down. So goes in the storm drain, Spring Creek, Illinois River. There's no permits. Again, how can this happen in this day and age? Here's Merry Christmas to the Bowens. get your backyard flooded, over the Christmas holiday, New Year's Day. Now, this is what's alarming. This just got posted yesterday on ADEQ's websites, and this is the independent analysis. But look down at the bottom where it's circled, over 200,000 on the E. coli. That's terrible. But that's on the surface, and that washes off and comes down through everywhere else. So there's even a bigger sense of urgency to try to get this stopped now. Every test they've pulled since the consent administrative order, they failed. And this is not Al Drinkwater, Town and Country. This is independent third party that the state has forced to take over this. So I'm not going to bore you. They've all failed. And then here we are on the 13th, and they pump enough to say they're pumping, and then here you come again. So with that, I'd like to ask Ms. Bowen to come up because she wants to give a brief update in her words. And I must say these people need a medal to have lived through this for over a decade. And so when we get the signatures and we're back in here shortly, we just need your help to fix this mess.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Joetta Bowen. My husband Lawrence and I have lived at 323 East Apple Blossom, Bethel Heights, since 1977, which is 42 plus years. Originally it was Lowell, then switched to Bethel Heights regarding boundary issues. Bethel Heights, a quaint property next to our property on the west side. In 2003, Bethel Heights started a sewer drip field on 11 acres. By 2005, unfortunately, it didn't work. How do I know this? I've lived in this horrible smell running on my property all these 13 years. Year after year, our question has been asked to Bethel Heights, when are you going to stop this wastewater sewage running on my property? No answer. We asked, if you aren't going to do something, where's ADEQ? No answer. Would like sewer run. How would you like sewer running in your backyard and into your garage, which is my son's? No reply. So last year we approached the council and requested assistance and began the process of reaching out to Springdale and Bethel Heights voters. As a small group of volunteers, we appreciate all the great people that have come forth to sign and understand that it is a horrible problem in the near future, and once those signatures are officially confirmed, we respectfully request an election be scheduled to allow Springdale and Bethel Heights voters to the opportunity to help us drain this swamp for good. This is not safe for my great-grandchildren or any child to play and be around. It's a health hazardous. Our community of Bethel Heights does not deserve this kind of leadership. 14 years way too long to live in embarrassing ways. As a young girl, I was taught, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. To me, that means treat others like you want to be treated. This runs in my yard down into Illinois River, like Joe has said. Taking samples in my yard is tested so high in fecal and E. coli lab can't measure it. Asked ADEQ, how high is Bethel Heights test? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Bowen, you deserve 2 trophies for this and for putting up with Lawrence for all these years.
Mr. Mayor, Jason's with us too. But anyway, a lot's going to start happening. We'll be back to you. And with these latest test results, we're going to be reaching out to Game and Fish and everybody.
Good.
And I'm going to figure out some way to get this shut down to a third party till we can get this election done.
Right.
These test results, well, what happened? They were doctoring their test results before. So now it's all coming out in the open, but this is terrible.
Let me focus just for a moment. We hear what y'all have been through, and it's a shame, and we're going to do everything we can to make it right as far when it's ours to make right, and we need that to happen. So, thank you for all the hard work. Y'all have done a lot of hard work in gathering signatures, and sounds like maybe we're there, but we'll know when we that'll all get taken care of. But let me focus just on ADEQ for a moment. I mean, Bethel Heights they're doing what they're doing, and they need to be held accountable. But I know that ADEQ has, the question comes to mind, and you asked it on your presentation. Where are they? We've got. I'm in my 12th year now as mayor, and the whole time I've been mayor, we've been dealing with issues concerning Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation and the Illinois River watershed and phosphorus loading in the Illinois River watershed. I learned more about that kind of stuff than I ever thought I'd need to know. And we identified point sources are easy to identify. They're wastewater treatment plants, and then you've got non-point sources, which is every field, ditch, stream that runs into the watershed. Everybody's front yard is a non-point source because it all ends up in the watershed. And those are very difficult to regulate. So we've put into place, when I say we, I'm not talking just about Springdale, I'm talking about every city in northwest Arkansas, with the exception of maybe one that we're talking about, have gone to great lengths to pass ordinances, stormwater ordinances, to help protect that watershed, because we're in the midst of a what could be a crippling lawsuit. It could be crippling for development in northwest Arkansas, for our population to continue to grow. And so we've made tremendous strides in improving the water that is coming out of northwest Arkansas and flowing into Oklahoma through the Illinois River watershed. This community, along with the other larger communities, we partner with the Springdale Water Utilities. We contribute $10,000 a year between the both of us, as other cities do, to help with the IRWP, the partnership. And they do things like stream bank restoration. They do education. They do other things to try and help clean up this watershed. Industry has stepped up big time. Our poultry industry, others that they believe through non-point sources have been contributors to the phosphorus loading and other mineral loading in the watershed over time, have stepped up, and we've made tremendous progress. And because of that, we're seeing some relief in that lawsuit. We think it's settled. We think, we don't have our numbers yet that we're going to be held to on our permit for our point source. Our point source is Springdale Wastewater Treatment Plant. But we think it's going to be something we can live with. We think it's going to be something we can live with, because the message over the last 12 years to the decision makers in Arkansas and Oklahoma has been, look what we've done, look at the difference we've made by industry, by city governments, by water utilities in improving this watershed. And we're to the point now that we've made great improvements. But the ratepayers of Springdale Water Utility have paid millions, literally millions and millions of dollars to clean up this mess. And then to see ADEQ I don't know how much it's obvious they've not done what they're supposed to do. And while holding larger cities accountable, and the residents of those cities accountable to cleaning up this watershed and dealing with this decades-long lawsuit with Oklahoma, And then to allow something like this happen, which basically Bethel Heights looks to me like is a non-point source right now. It's just flowing, it's doing what water and the stuff that water carries does, and that's go to the lowest point. They're just gonna, and it's gonna end up in the, as you said, in the watershed, and eventually end up in Oklahoma. And for us to have spent, for the residents of Springdale and the ratepayers of Springdale to have spent all this money, and it's not only, as I said, it's not only Springdale, it's Fayetteville, it's Rogers, it's Bentonville, it's most smaller cities that, that deal through a point source to dispose of their waste. And then to let something like this go on. I think ADUQ's got some things to answer for too. And we're going to try and hold them to the fire. If we end up cleaning up this mess, then we think they ought to be a full partner in that cleanup. But we're going to get it cleaned up. I think our water department has committed to that. If you all end up in Springdale, and we'll get it done, and it's the right thing to do. Nobody should have to live with this kind of mess, and it's a shame, and it's worse than a shame. I'm not going to use the word criminal, but somebody might down the road. But it's best case. It's a shame, and it sure shouldn't have happened. So when y'all get those signatures in, I'm confident this council will move quickly to help move forward the remedy that is available, and the remedy is that the voters of both cities get to decide. And hopefully they'll make the right decision, and we'll be full supporters of telling them we believe this ought to happen. So thank y'all for your work and for your presentation, and we'll anxiously await those petitions, and so we can do our part, whatever we can do to get this rolling. Anybody else have anything?
Sooner the better.
Yeah, sooner the better. That's right. Thank you all. Okay. We are at comments from citizens. Item 4, if this is the time the council sets aside each regular meeting to hear comments from our residents. If we have citizens that would like to address the council concerning something that is not on tonight's agenda, you're welcome to come to the microphone, clearly state your name and address. Please keep your comments brief, and understand that the council will not act on anything you have to say tonight. Is there anyone that would like to address the council? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. We spoke on the phone briefly. Stu Larrabee, Fayetteville Taxi out of Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yes.
As some of you might know, NWA Taxi and Dynasty Taxi have stopped operating at night, including Dynasty will not pick up people from the hospital or anything at night. I've been taking over these calls right now, so I just want to introduce myself because I'm getting phone calls from people that need to get to the hospital in Springdale or need to be picked up, or I took someone out of Springdale to a treatment center last night in Fayetteville. So I need to just want to make a quick introduction. I already submitted insurance, which is higher than what you require with the police department and stuff, and I just need to get the formal process started. So I just wanted a quick introduction, and for the people in the committees I need to meet here.
Good deal. Well,
Okay.
welcome, and hopefully if you meet all the requirements and stay
Yes.
up to date on that, we would love to have you, because
Thank-
it's been a struggle.
Yes, I
It sure
understand.
has.
Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, then we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Council, you've had opportunity to look over those minutes. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
Moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Item 6 is procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Roll call, please.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell?
Carry 7-0.
All right, thank you. Item 7, we have I'll go ahead and read a resolution making an appointment to this, appointments to the Springdale Library Board. Marcia, you might come forward in case there are any questions. This is a new appointment and a reappointment, correct?
Correct.
Right. Gene Anderson,
We have a recommendation for Jean Anderson to be appointed to the library board, and a recommendation that Paula Wilson be reappointed, and both terms would run till December 31st, 2024.
Move the resolution pass.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other comments or questions? All right, Denise?
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell? Jaycox?
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
Marcia, and please pass along our appreciation. Item 8, a resolution making appointments to the Shiloh Museum Board of Trustees. Alan?
We have 5 new brand new members coming on, and several who are coming from an old term to a new term on the board.
All right. Any questions for Alan? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved. Move the resolution pass.
Second, any further questions or comments? All right, Denise?
Overton?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
Thank you, Alan. And pass along our thanks and appreciation. Item 9, Planning Commission recommendations by Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development. Patsy?
The item for consideration tonight is the replat of Track 3 of the replat of lots 1 through 8 in R.L. Hayes subdivision. This is the Nanomec property. A split in this Track 3 was made 2 or 3 years ago to allow Nanomec the opportunity to purchase some additional property, with the understanding by the Public Facilities Board that if it wasn't used, it could revert back to the Public Facilities Board. You know, there's a bankruptcy going on. In order to be able to take this back, we need to replat it and put it back like it was before we did the split. So basically that's what this is replatting it back to what it was before we did the split previously. Planning Commission reviewed this replat and recommends approval. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance accepting the replat of Track 3 of the replat of lots 1 through 8 R.L. Hayes subdivision to the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency.
Ma- Okay, we got a motion.
Second.
Ernest, make sure I'm getting this right, but I'm thinking this was through the bankruptcy process. We had the Public Facilities Board had a clawback provision.
That's correct. That's correct. And in order to correctly identify the property that was going to be clawed back, it was required that this particular tract be replatted into two lots instead of being one big lot.
Okay,
This just makes it simpler going forward.
all right. Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? Okay, Denise?
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 7-0.
All right, thank you. Item 10, Ordinance Committee Report, Chairman Mike Overton. Mike?
Mayor, we have one ordinance come before the council with a recommendation for approval. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes, and it clarifies the ordinance pertaining to Bluff Cemetery, and I believe Brad Baldwin can answer any specific questions that anyone might want to address.
Yeah, Brad, you might want to, and especially for folks watching at home, but also for the council, just kind of go over the big change. You and Ernest have been working on that, and I know you provided some pictures.
This was essentially the policy that was in place for Bluff Cemetery for years. It had gotten to where it was not being enforced consistently. So we brought it to you all to give it the weight of an ordinance. I was not here when you all discussed it a month or so ago.
We really didn't discuss much.
Okay, that's kind of the impression that I got.
Yeah.
That you had some public comments, And at the committee meeting, you asked for pictures to kind of illustrate what we were talking about. You should find those at your place. Essentially, the first page are the situations that are fine, easy to maintain. The second kind of outlines some of the problems that we have with maintenance. The ordinance that you have, most of it is the old regs, just put in the form of an ordinance. After you're receiving some public input, Ernest and I worked on section E3 to address the issues of benches, and that's really what the photos kind of get at. If it's a bench or a vault that's stone or concrete on a concrete foundation, that works fine because we can mow and weed eat up next to the concrete foundation. If it's got all kinds of other surrounds on the plot or things that get in the way for maintenance, it's problematic, and that's kind of what.
So the basic rule of thumb is if it's on a slab, you can maintain around that slab.
You
But
can
if it's
maintain the slab.
if you got 4 legs that you got to go around each leg, then that's
Somebody
what.
has to get on their knees to pull
Right,
weeds.
right.
But,
So
okay, but didn't we, okay, go ahead, Ernest.
would you like me to read what the proposed change would be from the E3 that's in the packet?
Yes.
The proposed change would say, landscaping border of any kind or other items that interfere with cemetery maintenance shall not be constructed around the perimeter of any burial plot. However, benches constructed of concrete or stone and installed on a concrete foundation will be permitted. No, that was made after the committee meeting. That's the proposed change to E.
That's a revision to what we have. And that
Yes.
clarifies and addresses the concerns that, at least that I'd had voiced to me by numerous parties. And the bottom line is, if a bench is made of non-permanent material and not on a concrete foundation, then it's not allowed, nor fences, et cetera.
How would we handle, you've got benches, you've got a picture of concrete benches that are not on a slab.
Correct. Actually, those are 3 parts. So if you bump them
Fall
hard
apart.
enough, they go over.
Okay.
So they could injure somebody, one of
Okay.
the workers or somebody there. So we're saying those would not be allowed, but the ones that are permanently fixed would be.
But there would be nothing to prevent, they would be within compliance if those benches were secured in such a way and if they were placed on a slab.
Yes.
Okay.
They would be a concrete
Okay.
bench on a concrete foundation.
And they're
Alright.
informed of that.
Huh?
They're informed of that. If theirs was not on a concrete, let's say it's stone, like this one, then they get a phone call and they have the opportunity to fix it, or how does that work?
We'll send a note. We have remedied 2 of them that had rose bushes growing on them. And we tried to contact whoever the owner of record of that plot is. So in
So
some
we'll make
cases,
every effort to
every
contact.
effort to reach whoever they are and give 30 days before we would.
And they can be
remedy.
given, if they're out of compliance now, they can be given the options of how a bench could be brought into compliance.
Correct.
Okay.
There are some that would be non-compliant that are fairly well maintained. The issue is when they fall out of maintenance, we have to clean them up. We have to be able to clean them up, so.
Would it be possible, as you're pulling into the cemetery, to have something there that can list updated changes? as
Yeah,
people
we're
are coming
going to
in?
put a new kiosk at the entrance of the cemetery.
Good
Do
idea.
we, and I'm assuming monument companies would be advised of these
Yes.
changes so they can help catch some of
Yes.
this? Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
this will go out to all of them.
okay.
Brad, what time frame are you looking at in order to have full compliance? 6 months? I'm asking because some of the pictures of the fences that you've got in the pictures, if you can't find someone within the next 3 or 6 months to notify,
Well,
then what happens?
We'll try to find them and notify them within 30 days. If we haven't found a solution or got somebody that will come take care of it, we'll remedy it. So we'll send out a notice that says they have 30 days to remedy it.
Do I hear a motion?
No, I don't think there is yet.
Ask for one.
Are you making a motion, or I'll move the ordinance pass
Thank you.
as amended?
Okay, you have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Does anyone in the audience need to speak to this? Okay, Denise?
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell? Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Wolfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
It does have an emergency clause, I think, because you want to, are you wanting an emergency clause? It's got one on it.
I move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Wolfer? Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes,
Pretty weak.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0.
All right. Thank you. Item 11, Street and Capital Improvements Committee. Chairman Rick Evans. Rick?
We had a meeting last week, Street and CIP, and we have one item on the agenda tonight, which it was recommended for approval. It's an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for a pavement management inventory.
Move the ordinance pass.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Could someone, Brad, maybe take the time to explain to the general public exactly what this is all about?
What it's going to do, and then why we're asking to waive competitive bidding.
3 years ago, we did this in-house with a little less technology than this proposes. This improves the technology, brings some third parties, including the university, into the process to try to evaluate all of our hard surface streets and to give us a priority system for a future annual overlay program. We did it 3 years ago. It needs to be updated. And essentially, this is cheaper than we were able to do it in-house. We pulled the costs, and
Okay.
it's a cheaper way to go. Somebody asked if there are others around. I don't know of any in Northwest Arkansas, companies that do this. Fayetteville used a company, I believe, I was told IMS. They're out of Arizona. And I was able to find some of their contracts for other communities, and they're substantially more expensive than this one. So
Brad,
that's-
you might mention the workload of your existing department now.
Well, they're covering all of the bond projects. They're helping review, do plan review for all of the development going on in Northwest Arkansas. They're covering all of the stormwater that the mayor mentioned to try to keep us in compliance within the Illinois River watershed. So they're pretty well maxed out.
I have an unrelated question has to do with the bridge we've all heard about. Is the bridge itself or the road on the highway department's list? Is it just the bridge or is it the road?
The bridge is on the highway department's inspection list. And because of that, it was eligible for emergency bridge funds when it was damaged.
Uh-huh.
And so RDOT is designing and going to build a new bridge there.
So it's for clarification of folks, since that is on the state inspection is responsibility for Arkansas Department of Transportation, that's why we have to get their approval
Yes.
and their design.
Yes, and we've had to wait in line for their design crew. They're busy as well. Should be the first quarter of this year is what we've been told. We're in the process of the appraisals we're responsible for getting additional right-of-way that's required. Those have been appraised and are down at RDOT.
Right. And for the reasons, Mike, for the reasons you've mentioned, that's also why it was not eligible for FEMA funds.
Yeah, and also it's true then that all bridges in the state are the responsibility of the Arkansas Department of Transportation?
I don't know that. You'd have to ask RDOT, but I know there are certain bridges on the inspection list. We have several in Springdale.
So it's the bridges on their inspection list, to
Yes.
be specific. Okay, that's why, because I
And
get,
it-
I get questions about that all the time.
Over the years, and Patsy, you may remember this, Sam would have, I know, I don't think it was before Brad's time, but we've tried before to use, I think, this same program on that bridge, you know, because it was a one-lane bridge, and we would love to have had it replaced years ago. We did the bridge on Silent Grove Road with this program, right? Brian, you are actually the engineer on that. Or Shady Grove. Shady Grove, I'm sorry, not Silent Grove. And then we also did 56th Street.
It was,
With
it's
this-
on the list.
Yeah.
It was just, there's never enough bridge money in that program to do replacement. And we did the higher priorities that had more traffic than that one has, and it's been on the list as long as I've been.
Okay. All right. So anyway.
Brad, I was going to ask you before you take off real quick, on this study, I think some people have read this and misunderstood the depth of this actual study that they do on all these streets. First of all, how many streets will they be evaluating? I know all of them, but that seems like it'd be a huge load on your department.
Yeah, I don't know the exact count, but I think the mayor said if we were to mow the right-of-way, it'd be from here to Denver.
And it's more than just looking at the surface. They're
Yeah,
actually.
What they will do is they will video all of the streets, and they will provide us with an indexed reference. So if somebody has a question about this street, we'll be able to go to that location and call it up. That's something we weren't able to do in-house before. All of this will be, as we did before, in a GIS, but all these video clips will be geo-referenced, so we can go to a location and click and see what the streets.
So these will give us the grade that's, I mean, the grading, they'll use the grading system, or at least it'll be able to convert to the grading system that RDOT uses. Like, I'm thinking, for instance, of our state aid street program, where I'm on that committee, and we will fund a certain level and below, if it's, you know, as far as condition.
I'm not certain what the RDOT grading system is. This matches our earlier one, which is based on a Corps of Engineers
All right,
grading system.
I think it's the same, yeah.
They take an actual sample of the street?
They don't
Any
core the
testing?
street.
Okay.
And we need to talk about we need to find a good project for the state aid committee, now that they've taken the $250,000 limit off
Okay,
on overlays.
I've got several.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's pick one.
Brad, could I ask one more question? You had said that we did this study in-house 3 years ago. It was time to update it. As we move forward, will this be done on every 3 years? Is that the intent?
I would hope that we would do a 5-year plan
Okay.
and evaluate during that plan how we're progressing. So how much you get done depends on funding. So that's the idea, is to find out what the priority streets would be, and then start making an estimate and see how far our funds go. I would hope that we would make a pretty big dent in it over a period of about 5 years.
Well, my question was directed specifically towards, in 3 years, we'll be spending another amount of money to update.
Generally, yes, you would do this periodically. I
That's
think
what I'm
if
asking.
you'll remember, I made a presentation last year, and I showed you all a deterioration curve. Well, having data is how those curves develop. And our curve in this part of the world is probably different than it would be in Tucson, Arizona. So our local soil and climate conditions and even construction standards would play into that. So we would begin to see over time what we could expect. That will tell us how quick we need to get streets repaired.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We've got a motion and a second. Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Cox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulker?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell?
Yes.
Does have an emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second, I didn't hear what you said.
Williams?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulfer?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Powell? Jaycox?
Yes.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 7-0.
Just for the benefit of some in the room, Brad, I guess we can add streets to that if we ever need to. to that study? Okay. You know, for some reason, we get more streets in Springdale is kind of what I'm getting at. Okay. All right, thank you. Item 12, Finance Committee. Our chairman, Jeff Watson, couldn't be here tonight, he's a little under the weather. Would somebody like to take that? It's just the one item, or I can read it?
I'll take it, Mayor. It's, what we have is a resolution authorizing payment of invoice for project number 18BPC1. And that's an invoice from Milestone Construction in the amount of $1,504,755.83.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
All right. Just for clarification for folks at home, the reason we do that, the council has a rule in place, which I'm fine with, by the way, that if it's an expenditure over $1 million, that it requires additional council approval, even though it may be budgeted. For instance, this is a payment on our one of our bond projects, which is our criminal justice building out here. We're going to be seeing quite a few of these because as our bond projects move forward, we're going to have quite a few invoices probably that top over $1 million. But it's just an extra safeguard that the council has put in place, so that's what that's about. It was money that's already budgeted and accounted for. It's just if the invoice exceeds $1 million, then we get additional approval.
And Mayor, I think the criminal justice building's also called Harper Hall.
Okay.
Now we have,
I'll remember that. Item 13 is an ordinance.
The resolution.
I'm going to turn this over to.
12B.
we had a resolution first about the purchase.
Oh, we didn't
of
vote
property.
on the resolution?
No, no.
Oh, I see it.
I
I
got
see
another
it.
one.
Purchase of property. That's right.
And that was discussed at the committee meeting with a recommendation for approval, and the committee had earlier requested an appraisal on the property at 305 North Main. One was submitted, which was less than the original asking price, and I believe now the city attorney has executed a offer and acceptance on the property at the appraised price.
That's correct, and the property owner has given her consent to that offer and acceptance. And the title of the resolution,
I don't have it here in front of me, thank you.
you mean to do it?
Yep.
It's a resolution authorizing the purchase of property located at 305 North Main Street, Springdale, Washington County, Arkansas.
Right.
Move the resolution.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second. And Alan, I was not purposely trying to skip over this. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Denise?
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
No.
No. Overton.
Yes.
Carry 6-1.
All right. All right, now we're at item 13, and I'm going to turn that over to our city attorney.
Thank you. This is an ordinance calling for the simultaneous detachment and annexation of land currently located in Cave Springs, Benton County, Arkansas, pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated section 14-40-2101. There are 3 property owners who have property in Cave Springs. There's a map on page 78 that shows the location of these 3 parcels of property. This would be, if we pass this, this would call for the simultaneous de-annexation and annexation, then it would go to Cave Springs to hold a public hearing. My understanding is, in talking with the attorney for the property owners at Cave Springs, is an agreement in principle on this, but they still would have to get approval of their city council, and this would move the process along towards that.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Anyone in the audience need to speak to this? All right, Denise?
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Powell,
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. Item 14, we've added to the agenda tonight. This is I'm gonna turn it over to our Chair of our Police and Fire Committee, Brian Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, Chief Irwin came before the committee and brought up a resolution. The resolution reads, appropriate funds for the purchase of communication equipment for the fire department. This equipment are radio amps for their self-contained breathing apparatuses. Talked to us and gave us an explanation of where the money is going to come from. So, Chief, would you mind coming up and explaining to the public where this money coming from and what Act 833 is for us, please?
Thank you, Mayor, Mr. Chair. Basically, where this money comes from is from insurance turnback money that we get every year from Washington County and Benton County. Washington County is based on per capita, and Benton County is just divided amongst the 10 fire departments in Benton County. And so we get a percentage of that each quarter, and so the 4 quarters add up, and that's what we are wishing to take this money out of if you approve it.
Thank you, Chief. And this was forwarded to council with recommendation for approval.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other comments or questions?
Chief, that money builds up, doesn't it?
It does. If we don't spend it, it just builds up into an account.
How much do we have?
Just a little under 300 right now, I believe.
Probably, just full disclosure, probably you're going to be looking at some of that to help us equip the,
Fire station.
either the training station or the training.
The training facility, right.
Yeah.
If you remember in the budget, we requested $150,000 to
Right.
help outfit that.
Right, okay. All right, Denise?
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Powell,
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Wolfer.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 7-0.
Okay, comments from council members? City Attorney?
No, sir.
Nothing from me. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.